much change compared to 2020.
Okay, so if we had to have a number, what would the number be per 20-foot container? Is it like
20 feet container, only ocean freight, I think around $70 to $80 per metric ton.
$70 to $80 a metric ton? Okay.
Yeah.
You said that China would still import about 60,000 tons of peanut oil for the rest of the year. You said imports were at about 240,000 and you're looking at about 300,000 tons. What do you think the possible origins could be for this 60,000 tons?
First, of course, is Argentina, because Argentina harvest in May, right? So for China, the second half of the year, the main import, the oil import will from Argentina, Brazil, and before December, I don't know how much you can come from India, but of course, I think in December, some maybe from India. Yeah, the main origin should be Argentina and Brazil.
Argentina and Brazil, okay. Because we hear stocks over there are not so high, so everybody is in India is waiting to sell to China.
But just now I explained in the presentation, the oil company's stock is already very, very high. Now they are not keen to buy at all.
Okay. Alex, good morning once again. A few questions for you. You spoke about demand going up 9% in candy, 3% in butter, everything else. Do you think this will continue post-COVID when things are normalizing, and will American consumption of peanuts continue at these kind of growth rates?
I don't think that the consumption will continue at this growth rate, because they were just tremendous compared to historical levels. But I think, at least if you look at the peanut butter side, I mean, the biggest concern I think right now that we all have is inflation. And I think in an inflation or higher inflation situation, you will see that peanut butter will tend to do very well. So I think the consumption of peanut butter should continue strong. Candy seems to be doing very well at the moment and should continue to do fairly well. Snacks is the only one for the past month or two that has been a little weaker. I think overall we're pretty positive that we should continue having a 1 to 2% increase for the next year.
Okay. You also showed us a weather pattern which showed a lot of drought in the western part of the United States, and fairly not so much of drought or decent weather in mainly the peanut growing areas. So you already said aflatoxin is very comfortable. Would that give you a greater share into the European markets or would that be a focus rather, with low aflatoxin levels to ship to the European markets?
Well, I don't think it will be a focus. I mean, I think it's a matter of what interest we get from Europe. I think the biggest issue, as I mentioned, was really the logistical issue. Because of the freight rates having gone up in Argentina, we've seen a lot more interest coming from Europe. And I think that will continue, because I don't see that freight issue really solving itself very rapidly. So we should be able to have a good increase in our exports to Europe.
Right. You want to ask him something on peanut butter? I think Vishal has a question for you.
Do you see any increasing demand for peanut butter for exports to Europe, like imports from Europe?
For the US or just Europe in general?
Yeah, like is there a demand from the European buyers for peanut butter from US recently?
Yeah, there is, but I mean, there's been a lot more production capacity being built in Europe, and because of the import duty that they have on peanut butter, they're always going to favor buying peanuts and producing the peanut butter over there. So there's a little bit of import coming from the US, but it's going to be, I think mostly the increase is going to come from production inland in Europe.
Alex, one last question for you. You also showed the graph of exports to China going up and down like a roller coaster. You know, the Chinese have given their presentation talking of bearish news and bigger crops and a lot of stocks, etc., etc. What impact would this have on farmer stock, you know, especially your red tags? I know you said you have low AFLA this year, so hopefully lesser percentage of red tags, but what would be the method of disposal and, you know, how would the farmers deal with that part of it?
Okay, so I mean, I think red tag has been bought by China in the past in big quantities, but I think the past couple of years they have concentrated themselves on farmer stock, which then there's really no issue with red tag or no red tag. So with the quality that we have, we shouldn't have any problem on the supply side for any market, especially the domestic market. And I think, as I mentioned, the lower exports to China will just give us a little bit of breathing room in case of lower plantings next year, which is at the moment somewhat of a concern, looking at cotton prices where they are as well as corn prices.
Okay.
So hopefully I'm answering the question.
Yes, to some extent, yes. But it's to some extent because it's a very fluid market and, you know, situations keep changing and, you know, if China turns around and becomes a buyer or weather conditions in different parts of the world keep changing, so we can always have the situation changing quite rapidly. But I get your point.
Sure.
But I get your point on that. We will be throwing questions open to the audience as well in case anybody has any questions. I, for one, have a question for Kanak. Kanak, you gave us a presentation on the Indian scenario. We are exporting about 9% of our total production. Where do you see India in the next 5 years? Would we continue to be an exporter? Would we continue to be an exporter for the next 10 years? Not an exporter? What's a 5 or a 10-year vision? Are we going the China way?
I don't think we are going to China way. Reason is I am seeing the yields are getting better, so we'll have more production, and our local demand is no doubt is becoming stronger, but we'll have more crops coming in. And certain varieties like Spanish, India is the only option I can say. There is an option, but the better option is India. So I see from here the growth next 5 years should be not much, but yeah, 5 to 10% I can say. Overall, not year on year. Total growth.
Total growth in exports.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Perfect. Questions for Kanak on the India side? Your views on the market, considering we already have an MSP in place and you know, there is a limited downside because of the MSP to some extent.
You're asking me?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you repeat?
No, we already have an MSP in place, which is, you know, the government has been increasing it year after year. We are fairly close to MSP levels on the pricing of in-shells today. So what is your view on markets and pricing from this level?
This year, you are talking specifically this year or
specific to this year?
This year. I think today also prices in currently in markets are going higher than MSP. It's not that MSP is attracting farmers because our market prices are higher than MSP. I don't know what will happen in November when the arrivals will be increasing because we expect a very good crop. But I think MSP is will not really deter the. I mean, it will not disturb the market this year for sure because the crop is too much.
Thank you, Kanak. Lee, small question for you. How do you expect the demand for Senegal peanut oil in the coming months for the Chinese market?
Senegal peanut oil demand. No, I don't think so. I mean, I don't think there is a big demand because see, this oil company already have such high stock level, and right now China price is also at a very low level. Maybe let's. How to say? We need to look at the opening price of selling the peanuts. If the local market, their origin can accept China low price. So because right now the China market is really bearish, and the local kernel price, oil price already very low, and all the oil companies have not started their purchase. So this is only, how to say, happened in the last 10 years. This is the first year they have not started in by end of October. So this is really, how to say, they also have very high pressure on their stock, and also their stock cost is very high because of their last year's purchase high price. So now we think that they have to wait for the market to bring down the market price to make their average cost at lower level.
Okay, with prices of crude oil being so high, a lot of the vegetable oils continue to remain firm. There is a use for biodiesel as well. Peanut oil at current levels, from the Indian perspective, is very fairly valued. Not overpriced, but definitely not underpriced. Even with the government cutting import duties recently. So, I mean, what is the Chinese perspective? I mean, what do you think could be the bottom? I mean, I know as a buyer you would possibly want to buy it at $1,200 or $1,400, but what are realistic levels?
Okay, so first in China, I think the market is different because the China peanut oil, the consumption is very, the demand or oil price is very independent. They are not linked with the other oils like other countries like India or like the US or whatever. So China, the peanut oil price is quite high and like premium oil. So first, I would like to answer this vegetable oil price globally is so high, but in China we also have seen that soya oil, palm oil increased so much these days. But we have also checked. Actually, the end users' demand is not that good as expected. The problem is the supply chain from the US or outside from Indonesia. So the actual demand has not increased. And for peanut oil, we have said right now the level is the stock level is very high, and the small package sales is not as good as last year, or we can see it's back. Okay, so now if we talk about Indian peanut oil, I would say maybe at 1600 level. Yeah, this is my assumption. Yeah, my personal view on this.
Great, thank you. It's always good to hear the number. We don't know whether deals will happen at that price or not, but you can always ask. Yeah. Do we have any questions from the trade? Any questions? Okay. We don't have any questions from the trade. Alex, Lee, Kanak, thank you very much for being here as part of the presentation.
Hello.
And the question answers.
Yeah. Is Bill online right now?
No, we can't see him, so. Bill, Gailey, they are not there. Even Eduardo is not there.
Bill is not there online?
No. So, thank you very much for being a part of the IGOC seminar, and we stay in touch, and good business to all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody. With this, we now move to the presentation of Kharif Crop Survey 2021. Everybody on the web can add to the new session. That's the presentation. It goes online in a couple of seconds.